Chris Skye, like I've always like worried that he's just got such a
I'm going
massive
live
ego.
right now, but keep going. Sorry. Yeah, I'm talking to Kyle, and you were on a good thought about Chris Sky. That was like the whole topic of our last 3 hours. So I wanted to get you back on that one. You're not being seen on the stream? See, that is my problem right there. It's not seeing you. But anyways, I've got the audio of you, and even though it's rude to not have your face on screen, we were talking about all sorts of stuff. But yeah, what was your opinion on Chris Sky, Kyle? Welcome.
Well, I mean, I really like Chris Skye, and I think he's done a really great job towards, um, standing up for freedom. I would say that he's got like, a big ego, and it's the Chris Skye show, for the most part. And I think, there was a lot of other people who were standing up, like, when he's like attacking people personally. Like, I just think, like, I try to live my life by the four agreements. And like the first is like be impeccable with your words, don't take things personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. And when like you're kind of attacking other people who are really standing up and like putting on the line, and like calling them like words like losers, like I think that's just kind of low and cheap, and it's not coming from like a, I don't know, a heart position. Um,
Yeah, I just think my doubt with him is based on his behavior. It's just it's so erratic, it's so volatile, and it's so unneeded. Like everyone loves him. He shouldn't be encountering a lot of hardship, and it just seems like I don't know. It just to me, there's nothing about him that feels organic anymore. And what we just covered was a very long spiel about all the lies that he went through, and he used it as a soapbox to viciously attack PPC, the Canada Day event. And he said, "There's this woman who I want you to listen to. You'll find her funny." Um, and she was just talking. This is yeah. We don't have to either. If the like you're coming on as a great like you're chilling, you're probably having a nice time. I'm not trying to put like third degree on you. Like it just seems like the claims are ludicrous and non-falsifiable, anyways. But
yeah, I mean, and all that, look, all that happened in the past, and and it's important that we understand kind of what took place.
yeah,
But diverting a whole bunch of energy onto that, takes us away from the energy that we can be focusing on, okay, on learning from everything that happened yesterday, planning for tomorrow, and strategizing and acting kind of now.
I got you. You don't want to get divisive and negative, but I kind of come at it from the thing of we live in a time where we need to know that the people we're listening to are legitimate. And when I get vibes from Chris Sky that is like he's an active saboteur, it's like nothing makes sense about attacking PPC and exclusively attacking PPC. And nothing makes sense about the BJ Dichter crew, and I know you might like the BJ Dichter crew because they like bitcoins and you like this digital wealth stuff and you like all these cutting edge ideas. So I feel like we're going to butt heads because you have very positive associations with these people. So I'm kind of not I don't
Yeah,
know,
I
we're
mean, look,
not
I've talked to BJ, and I don't like know the whole. I don't know, like, this side of the story that you're talking to
yeah.
about that. But I'm open to that, and I would love to learn more. I think it's critical that we have open discussion and debate about all the topics, and that nothing should
Basically,
be.
the long and short of it is I think that the Matrix is doing an operation on influencers to make them black pill on politics and make them not choose the only hope we have, which would be a peaceful populist revolution to replace every asset at once in our political structure, at least get to a majority of the people just saying, oh, wait, there is one way around this. We all vote for this, and then you're all gone. And then
Yeah, and like, and that term black pill. So like, just like, that is basically just like almost like what, like nihilism, like there's no hope, like can't do anything, like don't even
political black
try.
pill. Yeah, political black pill. So don't bother getting involved with any of them. You could just at any stop with a black pillar, there's like, oh, all politicians are liars, and then they lump PPC in with that, which is a win for the Matrix because the Matrix are liars. And if you get someone to believe the truism that all politicians are liars, and then say, ergo, the populist politicians with PPC are the same, and you get our influencers to do the completely unnatural thing, which would be it's an alliance. Like there's no one more compliant with United Non-Compliance than PPC. They're natural allies, yet Chris Skye went viciously against them in what reeked of a political attack and a sabotage of an event that
Well,
would have
and
got positive attention
I
to
know, but it
PPC and
also and
Randy.
like, but and like, and this was like where like what's his kind of end game? Like I don't understand like what he was going for because he wasn't he was it was Chris Sky for PM was like what he was saying, and I was like, well, that's ridiculous. Like, it takes a lot of infrastructure in order to get there. And I think what you were kind of alluding to at the end was like, look, we have a vehicle that's in play now, with the PPC. And I mean, look, in the last election, I was like, dude, like, purple. Like I have
Mm-hmm.
wholly endorsed Pierre, or not Pierre, but Max Bernier, and
Yeah,
like, like go purple. Like it is the only choice, like of any of these in this broken system. Like,
nice.
it's the only one. And but like, yeah, the psychological programming that's happened onto all, like, the people within the matrix, as we'll say, is wild. Like I know, like my mother, like I just mentioned the word Max Bernier, she's like Nazi, like instant, like triggering, and
Whoa.
like that's not her fault. Like I mean, that's the same for a lot of people too. Is they're
Yeah.
just like instantly like Nazi, and this is like this weird projection that's going on because I think we can both agree that our existing political class cast are, neo Nazis. They're not persecuting the Jews, if you
Yeah.
will,
It's all projection. Yeah.
explicitly, but it's like everything they're saying is pure projection of what they're doing, and it's just completely bananas,
That's
and that's
funny.
why
So, how much of your sorry, keep going. I cut you off.
it's fine. No, let's
No,
let's roll.
how much of your this is a total digression by the way, of your software is running on your mother's thinking compared to Justin's software? How much are her beliefs about reality more towards yours cuz you seem like a black sheep outsider in your family?
Yeah, and I would say, like, I don't. My mother was like a kind of definitely, like, a creative and kind of outside the box thinker, but like, she is like really like, with Justin, her eldest son, being in this position of power, and also having been around, being the first lady of Canada,
Yeah.
and like, she's in it. Oh, she's in it, and it's like, yeah, you like can't talk crap about Justin. Like, so she's like,
Yeah.
she's got
Good for a boy.
she
I would yeah, it's
she's got them. Agent Smith is right within her. She's not taking the red pill. She takes the blue pill and has been prescribed the blue pill for a long time.
yeah.
And I love her dearly, but like, it can't even have a discussion. It's because, like, in this the challenge with Justin too. It's like you can't have a discussion about actual matters because it just, like, it counters
What's your
the
relationship
myth.
with him like though? Like
Well, it's like,
how
dude, we can like, we can play throw frisbee, like jump on a trampoline, go on a canoe trip,
yeah.
like, like do
But in
familial, like, human stuff, like no problem, like, have a good time like that,
yeah.
like play with the kids. But as soon as it comes down to, like, talking about policy or anything, like, because I mean, look, I've like, 2003 or 2005 when Loose Change came out. Like, I remember on 9/11 being like, dude, this is messed up. Like, something's like really messed up about this. And then when Loose Change came out, I was like, whoa. And then started digging in deep. And then, like, Zeitgeist really like showing off, like, the men behind the
Yeah.
curtains. And then just like, like diving full red pill. Um, I mean, whatever that means, but like, really investigating into the truths, and you can't unlearn the truths too after this.
Yeah.
And then, and as I'm sure we both kind of have experienced in our life, like, when we're dealing with other people, it can be turning off because a lot of people, like, consciously choose the blue pill, and like, recognize that, if they accept what we're saying, it is like this recognition that the world is being like, run by a bunch of monsters,
Yep.
and that there's a lot of really nasty shit going on, and it puts them in a position of like, where things can't be so rosy and dreamy, and it's like, it's just the, you know what I'm saying, right?
I do, but I don't know. I just think with your attitudes, they must have to just harmlessly dismiss you, or you would be like you'd have undergone a hiking accident by now. Do you know what I mean? You must be like, because things are vicious right now, man. I mean, Justin has said that people who don't get vaccinated tend to be racist misogynists. And why do we tolerate them? It was pure Hitler. It was pure Hitler in the election that he was channeling against the unvaccinated. And I knew he was doing it because he had his crown jewel, which was 90% vaccination. Are you vaccinated? Is it weird if you have to go to a family function and have to call Justin and say, can you grant me a prime minister's exemption to fly because I'm not taking mRNA
Can I, can
injections?
I get can I get a royal writ of
Yeah,
passage to enter Canada because I
right?
won't take your experimental like gene therapy fake vaccine?
Right.
Like,
So you're not
yeah.
vaccinated.
No, man. No, no chance.
No
I've
one
got
that
dude, I've
sees
got four
Zeitgeist is
kids.
vaccinated. Yeah.
I've got four kids. I've like,
Yeah.
there's way too much risk in doing that. And I'm like, and even if they're like, look, here's your saline placebo, like, no, man, I'm not kowtowing to this. I will not like complicit. And this is why I felt like I've had to just stand up. And I've honestly been freely talking about a lot of this stuff forever. It's
Hmm.
just like nobody was like listening. It was just like, you're just clearly kind of, I don't know, if I'm shadow banned or just like people are like, okay, like there's crazy Kyle, like, talking about all these things that are really deep, but
It's
we
almost like a really good cover you have, though. You know what I mean? Like if you're perceived as something as a credible threat and not just a black sheep who watched the movie Zeitgeist. You know what I mean? It's almost like a very, because I believe there are some powerful forces making people say things that are 180 against reality. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
that's a very powerful force that can make Doug Ford look into a camera and ignore the fact that treatments exist that could keep his hospitals open. But he looks in the camera and he says, "No one goes against their top doctors. I have to do this." You know, like it's
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the challenge. Like, I'll say very clearly, I only have one oath, and that's like, to my wife. Like, I am not part of any like, secret societies, or I don't believe that I've like, I'm not committed to any of these like weird rituals. Like, I've been to Davos. I went to Davos in 2017 as part of like a satellite
yeah,
party kind of thing called Crypto HQ, which was like a bunch of decentralists, like,
cool.
kind of hacking things. And I remember even going to like, the Canada event, which Justin was showing up to. And I mean, I wanted to hang out and like talk to Justin because, dude, I've been having like really intense talks about like some major macro issues with a whole bunch of really brilliant people. And then like, I remember I didn't like when he showed up to the party, I didn't like jam into the selfie ring to like get that photo, and he got all angry at me about not getting that photo.
What
I was like,
year
dude,
is
I don't
this?
this is like 2017.
Okay, yeah,
And I was like, I don't want to get like I'm not like I don't want that photo next to you at Davos. Like that's not like my goal. Like this isn't like
yeah,
an ego thing.
yeah.
Like I want to talk with you. I want to like, explore these things. I want to
Hmm.
talk about like, policy if you want, or blockchain, or decentralized identity, or like, different things about like, how we can build new systems and like improve things. But for a long time I've known like, that he's got a book that thick. Like, he's got the playbook. It's just a
Yeah.
big script that he's working off. And like, what I told when I was talking like to Alex and to other like Alex Jones and some other people, it's like, man, these guys like Justin, he's not like he's a figurehead, and like, he's being set up to like soak up all this energy and all this like hate as like, and be this front man for it, but he's just reading a script. Like
Yeah.
Justin's not engaging in open discussion with anybody, like publicly at all. Like he doesn't do that. And so like you might think like I'll say
And he doesn't want to resolve this with you the next time he sees you. Like, you're saying I'm reading a script, Kyle. That's not true. Like, he doesn't want to, there's no relationship weirdness about you saying he's a prime minister that reads a script.
I got cut off.
Oh, how long is the
I
estrangement?
I've been effectively firewalled except for like familial things, and the
Yeah.
estrangement happened in the kind of the spring of 2020.
Uh huh.
Um, as soon as this all this crap went down, I was like inundated with profiteers, like seeing me as some sort of channel towards making the PPE or deals or the
Mm-hmm.
rapid test deals, which is so crazy because now it's like now finally all those rapid tests that were trying to be sold are all being delivered and being sold, and profiteering is insane, and those
Yeah.
things were like 75 cents a unit, and they were like, oh well, you'll get cut in on this big amount. It was like, really? Like this is,
Yeah.
and I remember like being really wary of all that, and I also watched a lot of really good people who were working on really cool things all of a sudden like switch into like maybe they're just caught underneath the spell, underneath the whole like that beginning spell, and that like thing where it was like, one, we can do something good to help, and like two, I can make some money off this. um and then I remember like one of the world's leading mycologists reaching out to me being like, yo, we can stop the cytokine storm like immediately. And I was like, send it to Justin, like, here, send it to him, here's the people like you should send it to. And then he's like, I think like 2 weeks later, he's like, I didn't get any response. I was like, well, like, here, let me just send it his way. And then I got back, like, don't send me anything. Like, this is against like protocol. I'm like, dude, we're in a pandemic. We got to save people. We got to save things.
Wow.
And and then the next day it was like 200 million was announced for vaccine funding. So um, yeah,
Jesus.
it was really clear. I mean, we know this. We
And
know.
you were
I'm like,
trying to provide him with the treatment protocol to lower the deaths that without going to like ventilators and vaccines.
yeah, and not via like
Like who?
Johnson and Johnson or Pfizer, or like is using like
Yeah.
natural compounds like
Mm-hmm.
mycelial compounds from one of the world leading mycologists who um yeah is looking at like planetary regeneration, saving the bees, like doing all these amazing things, and
Wow.
like recognizing that the cytokine storm, but it didn't matter, like, because we know, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and again, like,
Pierre
but
Corey was
again,
talking about
and it's
ivermectin,
like,
and
and why Justin doesn't want that thing coming his way is because like he's not supposed to be dealing with any of like the stuff. He's
mhm.
just supposed to be like the spokesperson. So that's like him just like protecting his role. It's all just it's man, it's so frustrating to see it all. And like this is something that like and I feel that it's important to talk about all these things too, because like this is kind of the safety of it. If you keep things like hidden, you become like you
Oh,
expose
for
yourself to
sure.
more danger.
Yeah.
But whereas if it's just open, and like similarly like talking about, okay, like what Bucky Fuller said, like you can't fix the system by fighting it. You got to build new systems that make it obsolete. And that's why like while I think we should we should make efforts towards like helping the PPC or being involved with PPC and looking at this as a viable like alternative party and strategy. We should really look at this, Morse code government system that we have of representative democracy based on the Westminster model, where every 1, 2, 5, 4 years, like, we go make a single friggin' check mark at the community center,
Yeah.
and like that's somehow democracy, and there's zero accountability.
Yeah.
And that's like that's what I was saying about like Pierre Polyev too. It's like, yeah, he's saying a lot of good stuff, and I met Pierre a couple times. Like he showed up at my conference and he talked about blockchain technology being used like to help like potentially bring about like a new form of democracy, like they have with Switzerland, of direct democracy, where people can, if they get enough support for something, it goes to a national referendum. And like
Hmm.
that was awesome to hear. And and then
See,
and
those
so
ideas though need to be implemented when you have control of the existing system, right?
yeah.
So I agree. I totally agree with embracing those principles. I especially agree that blockchain, it struck me as the best method of maintaining vote security for people. Like, you know exactly where your vote is because that piece of blockchain was added to you that has your unique signature chain for your vote only, not for your whole personality. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yep.
some distancing because we need to tread lightly on the digital ID thing because people should be very wary of anyone coming with digital ID before we have security over our governments and know that they don't want to kill us all and track us all. You know, it's,
Well, and and the word digital ID too, it's becoming more and
yeah.
more loaded. Like it's like, what is digital ID? Like, what is the digital ID that
I mean
that
the
that
freedom to
that you're
leave your
cautious of?
home without your phone and not be tracked. Right?
Right.
That's
Well, I
it's
mean,
going
our
to the
current, so
yeah, no,
we
like the
currently have we
5G face recognition of when you enter a store and your money doesn't work because the facial ID recognized you 5G wise. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm trying to talk nerd talk, but I know the general concepts of what happens is it will face recognize you and tell you your money won't work here because you are owing on this or you've done this and you've spoken out against this. You're a danger to,
Yeah,
everything
so
linked
it's
to
really
digital
like the
society with that
Chinese social
surveillance.
credit
Yeah.
system, like
Yeah.
is like, the digital ID. Because digital ID, from my perspective, it's like we all there's many different forms in which digital identity can take place. And have been a big proponent of, like, distributed decentralized digital identity solutions versus centralized digital identity. Same with currencies. Like Bitcoin,
Yeah.
decentralized service. Like, anybody can participate. It's inclusive. It's immutable. It's like it's immune from like supply chains. Like, you can't debit people's account. You can't credit people's account, like, just out of thin air. There's no super users on it.
Yeah.
When you have centralized systems, then if it's like the Bank of Canada that has the Canada dollar, which will just be it'll be the Canadian dollar just digitized, and, like, you'll, I don't know, use your driver's license, or they'll give you an account, and they'll be able to give you free money to it and, like, instantly do that, but they'll also be able to dock from it instantly and be able to turn it off instantly. So that's like this, and that's a centralized solution. That is something to be very aware of and concerned of, because that is definitely a threat towards freedom for Canadians. But, like, but and like not but and there are there are options for digital identity in different forms and facets, including this idea about voting. So, like, with Elections Canada, for example, there's a database of all the eligible registered voters. Like, if there's a way that you could get your token to be able to vote and then be able to track your vote, on the items, to be able to enable, like, a more fair and clear and transparent and accountable governance system, like, that is something we should be looking at. Because, like, and this is why I did this whole Canada thing, and I've been talking about, like, well, we need new systems. And, one of the conversations, like, you were in that spaces yesterday for a hot minute, but a little bit later,
Yeah. My
this
phone
dude named,
died, but it was
okay,
recorded. I kept thinking, I'm like, it's recorded. I'll go back.
yeah, I know, there's everything's
Yeah.
recorded. We have no
Yeah.
time. um but there was another, like, this guy named Brad Mills came on, who's, like, who's a pretty hardcore Bitcoiner, and he's a freedom lover as well. And, like, looking at, okay, like, one of the theses or the conclusions was, you know polling, polling is just like one layer below voting. And the current system of polling in Canada is run by, like, you can count the number of polling firms on your fingers, like, major polling firms. I need to actually do a little bit more kind of due diligence research, but I know a bunch of these guys from the polling industry. Like Bruce Anderson, like, fucking canceled me on Twitter the other day because I called him out for, like, for the polling situation. But polling is used by the parties and by the corporates to, like, shape matrix reality, and, like, the cherry pick data. And I think, like, the based on polls, we have very different, like, projections of reality in what's actually taking place. So I think that's one area that, like, if we can start having some more verified kind of Canadian centric polling on issues, on having open issues and open discussion around things, I think, like, that's really where where more attention is needed, to encourage kind of discussion and get different perspectives. Because like the way that these big polling organizations, the way they ask their questions, just in the way they ask their questions, is like propagandistic.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, yeah. The word, it's so deceptive, leading to the conclusions. Talking to people that are on predominantly liberal lists or ridings, and like they leave all kinds of stuff. They omit things that would
they
make the
omit.
polling go well. It leaves itself to corruption and fraud. And dude, my thing is with polling, I believe Churchill said it best when he said, Roosevelt follows public opinion when he needs to lead it. I'm leading public opinion, and I wish he would stop following the damn polls and start leading them, because polls are just taking a temperature check of what the media is normalizing in most people's brains about politics in a country where most of Canada abhors thinking about politics. So when you abhor thinking about politics, you go to the news media. That's the quickest search for your top news headlines is CP24 in Toronto, and all these ones that just give them it quick. Give me the news quick. And that's what works on most zombies' brains and the normal that's discussed with their families. So if you have a leader that is dramatically leading and abandons CBC or CPC platform of whatever it is and just goes as a one party of freedom and we want to go back to the old normal. If you were strong enough as a party to sell it on we want the old normal, everyone would wake up. But because CPC doesn't do that and only
Do you
PPC
want
does
the
do
old
that.
normal?
Oh, at least I want to get the car started. I look at it as humanity was sabotaged and we blew a tire. Someone put a nail on the road and the nail was COVID. And that once the car broke down, dad, who were expecting to fix it, he just gets out of the car. He's like, wait a sec. And dad is Justin Trudeau in this circumstance. He's like, why don't we reimagine the idea of a combustible engine? I've got some great ideas. And he starts unloading the trunk. And he's got plans to build a new solar engine powered car in the middle of the desert when all we need to do is get the spare tire out. The spare tire is treat COVID, acknowledge the PCR tests were overthrottled. That's changing the tire. And then once we have a system purged of corruption through replacing all our politicians through populist revolution, we can discuss your amazing ideas about how to make things more secured with blockchain. And all these new things can be freely talked about and not dismissed because the media has been corrupted with government subsidies and everything is downstream from what our politicians have done to rig this matrix. So I really don't know what my point was. It was so tangenty at the end there, but like, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, man. And look, I mean, I will personally say I don't want the old normal back, because I think like, it was still underneath the spell of all these maniacs. Then like, they're just priming us for this, this cataclysmic moment. Because I think as a result, one of the benefits of the last 2 years has been a great awakening of many hearts and souls out there. Like there are more people awake to and have been
Yeah,
like red pilled, if you will, than there's ever been on Earth ever in history.
yeah,
Like at least knowledgeable history. So like, that's good. And we need, and like I also like, I don't know, this sometimes gets a little taken by some people, but I feel like we are in this age shift, and like, the systems of the last age will not port into this new age, and we need to start looking at redesigning things. Because like, this is the money system, the debt-based system. Like it's just like, we're being pushed on so much scarcity, and it's like, there's so much oppression when like we're so rich, like as a nation. If we think from a macro perspective, we're so rich in resources, we're so rich in land, we're so rich in technology. Like costs of things should be going down, they shouldn't be going up. But like, the matrix pushers and the propagandists and these like dominators, like, seek to continue to like, keep people distracted and fearful. And like the purpose of government right now is just create more laws. It's just like
yeah,
creating more and more and more and more all the friggin' time. It's just more laws. And like, there's never any discussion about like repealing them, or saying like, hey, like, income tax, for example, is basically slavery. Like, what if we just got rid of that entirely? And like, he turns spring, instead of it being this tax season and like this time of anxiety, to turn spring into what it actually is, which is when like, the earth warms up. It's like,
Yeah.
fertility is abundant, and we celebrate and we come out and we enjoy this, like,
Yeah.
in the growth, and we sow the seeds for the next seasons. Um,
Yeah. The psyop. Just end the psyop, and it generally everything will return. The plants will
and the
start
psyop.
growing. Turn off the radiation machine, and the plants will start growing again. But they can't.
Well,
The
and
sickest
plant a
thing.
seed, and
Oh,
just
for
like, hey
sure.
guys, like, plant seeds. Like,
Yeah.
instead of staying watching the tube, or like, relying on the systems, like, just go and plant some seeds. If everybody started planting some seeds and like, becoming a little bit more agriculturally self-reliant, and like, community self-reliant when it
Yeah.
comes to food production, like, that is one of the greatest.
That's going to be a very near-term goal for many people, because that's the biggest thing I see about PPC. People think like I'm talking narrow-mindedly, like I've got the next election pinned in my calendar. I don't care about the voting option. I care about the being in a group with binding principles that transcend all of what the Matrix wants us divided by, which is race, creed, gender, all that. Doesn't matter. You can be a gothic, gay, black, lesbian, and be PPC, or you could be a white male, straight oil tycoon in Alberta and be PPC. It is simply a group that subverts the matrix and says, let's get back to first having a free country, second, purging the current system, because if you elect the CPC and the Pierre in that, they're part of this. They're two sides of the same coin that is never going to put together a commission that will adequately investigate what the hell happened with COVID-19. And we all know the writing's on the wall. A genocide occurred, a genocide of neglecting a treatment. If you accept as true the fact that
Genocide
Dr.
is underway. We
Yes,
are
it's still
actively
going.
under
It's
genocide.
massive. It happened originally. It's happening to kids, and people are still cool with it. And we have to live in this mad world, and we have to square it. And that's why I say, guys, you're not going to square it unless you have a good cause and a good, strong group. So you need a good cause. You need to wake up working for something every day to sustain yourself through the chaos storm. And that's what another PPC value I hold. It's like, what's our reason to gather? It's just United Non-Compliance Gathering, just to keep it topical to the Chris Skye thing. I'm like, I agree. We need to unitedly non-comply. But that's a basic tenet of opposing tyranny. It's not a plan. It's basically like charge, when what we need is tactics to do before, to get in range of charging, to get numbers up high enough to believe in what we believe in. Because yes, it'll all fall. But I think what you said, and someone, Avalon, made a good comment in the chat saying, I know it seems hopeless sometimes, but I can see the eyes of people wondering what the F is going on. That's the most optimistic time in the world is right now. It's that magical time between 2 jabs and going for 3, because most people we know opted for 2 to hope it was done after that. I did my part. I played along. You told me it was safe and effective 40 times a day, which you'll be guilty of Nuremberg crimes for. But I went along with it, but no more. And they're not doing it again. And there's a huge amount of society doing that. But yet Justin's acting like he's still got this 90% army that hates the 10% who didn't take the vaccine originally, right? So,
Well, I mean, he's not. We're not seeing here. Like, we're not hearing anything out of him right now. Like, he's gone, like,
has he?
gone
Wow.
dark. Well, I mean, I would say,
Yeah.
like, as soon as Ukraine came along, this is like perfect. Like, this is an opportunity to go fly
Yeah.
around, travel, talk all about this, engage in, like,
Oh, yeah. Total
bullshit,
escapism.
bullshit geopolitical, like, handshaking and projecting, and like, all the while. And then, like, let's just, if we just completely ignore everything that happened in Ottawa, and like, we don't even talk about it, and like, I'm not going to show up to any, he can't show up anywhere anymore too. And
Yeah.
that's what I feel
Yeah. The
like,
Vancouver
like,
thing. Yeah.
at the heart to heart, like at the human level, like, I know Justin likes, like, he liked to be the center of attention in a room. Like, he liked to have people like him. He liked to have
Yeah.
people love him. And like, dude, the last election, he couldn't go anywhere. That's why it's like, I really believe, I just don't trust any of the numbers anymore. And I think, like, our, like, we need to have accountability within the systems, because even, like, if we're putting all this energy into, like, the PPC, into the voting, but if at the end of the day the voting is broken, and there's,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's hacked,
But
then
with
like,
PPC working for that vote, you're in a group of millions of people. Without that vote as an end goal, you don't have a group and you're just pure entropy and you're going to fall to everything. Like, my goal
Absolutely.
is have a group so large that it's impracticable to gulag us as dangerous to society for wanting freedom. You know what I mean? That's the goal. It's
Yep.
recruit enough people to freedom that you're safe from being at a gulagable level. Like, and everyone thinks like I'm so narrow minded that I just think a vote will get us out of this. I'm like, you don't get how bad it is, bro. You need to unite with others right now.
Indeed, and I would say as well, there's like there's like there's this energy quotient too, which doesn't really get mentioned. Like when you look at the polls, when you look at the numbers, and you look at like
Mm-hmm.
the output, like those who actually voted for PPC were like I would say like their level of energy and towards and their like desire to be civically engaged is like exponentially higher than say my 101-year-old grandfather. I love him to death, but he's going to vote liberal. But he's 101 years old, and
Yeah.
he's like, he just always voted liberal. So, like, that's what he does. He's not gonna like, that's difficult to deprogram that. But if I would say that if there were more votes and if there were like, actual like, issues to vote on, like, he would probably do research into them. And if it could be presented with information in an unbiased manner, or if you could like, what I like about the Swiss system is like when they do referendums, if you go and you get 100,000 signatures, the referendum that you propose will be on the ballot for the whole country to make. You get to write the one pager that goes on the left side. The government writes the one pager that goes on the right side. It goes in a booklet to every voter, and they get to see. And then you get to make your case for why, and the government goes on TV and says why they should abide by the status quo. And it's like, it's really like clear, like, okay, we're having this. But in that last election, man, like, dude, the PPC, all that energy, it was like, no, you're not going to be allowed to debate, like, partake
Yeah.
in our like fake debates. You're not like in like, like my buddy Ian Roden in Toronto, he was, like, he wasn't allowed to participate in the debates there. Like, so
Yeah.
it's like, and
He
I'm
would have
sure that
been
happened to
good.
so much,
He was a
so
strong
many more
candidate.
candidates. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He's great. And I mean, and ultimately, like, but yeah, I just come back to this point
Oh
where
yeah,
it's
people
like,
are asleep, man. It's not up to, like, we can provide the water in the desert, but people still need to want to drink water. And they're
well,
just told
yes,
that like wet sand is the best we can do. We'll just keep chewing on wet sand because it's all we know. And it's like, really, if you're willing to walk another mile, you can get water. And they're not. No one's willing. And while they're not, at least we can lead a culture of being civically engaged again and get in real life. Because the way I see it, the only way to ever spread our message, everything online is censored. We're not going to get through to any zombies, as I call them pejoratively. I thought my computer was screwing up or